Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and another patron requested review. Once again, it is Zarate Ryan. I have a whole backlog for Zarate. I'm punching them all out lately. This time he has chosen the Yorgos Lanthimos, who cares, film, The Killing of a Sacred Deer. I really like Colin Farrell, so I'll pretty much watch anything with Colin Farrell in. Same can be said for Nicole Kidman, really. I can't say the director was a big draw for me personally with this. The only film of his I had seen before this was The Favourite. Now, when I did my ranking of the Best Picture nominees, the year in which The Favourite was nominated, it was at the bottom of my list. It was about the worst of people, really. It was just about a bunch of people with no redeeming qualities doing horrible things to each other, and supposedly a comedy, which I personally didn't find funny. Uncomfortable, yes, intentionally so. So skills to Yorgos for that, but it didn't really do anything for me. So yeah, going into this, knowing it's a film from the director of The Favourite, I was a bit like, okay, I'm here for Farrell, I'm here for Kidman. Let's see what happens. I don't know whether to say spoilers because I'll probably end up going into spoilers with this. I might have to towards the end. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But story-wise, the thing is, it takes a while to get going. This is the thing. You've got Colin Farrell's character, who, for whatever reason, has befriended this child, played by Barry Keoghan, and it seems like at first I thought, oh, is this like an illegitimate son of his that he's not told his wife about? And then as layers of the onion start to get peeled back, you realise, no, this isn't. This is something else entirely. So it's quite late in the day when there's a particular thing that happens, which kind of is the story, really. So it may seem like a spoiler, but it's just like, without going there, there's nothing else I can tell you about the story. But the simple fact of the matter is, it turns into a bit of a horror kind of halfway through. Say that in the loosest of terms. Social horror, shall we call it, in which this kid, we never get an explanation as to how he does it, but he has the power at any rate. Maybe it's a curse, maybe whatever. He's put a curse for want of a better term, he's put a curse on this guy's family, on this character played by Colin Farrell. He's put a curse on his family because he wants retribution. He believes that Farrell's character, who is a surgeon, is responsible due to negligence of his own father's death. So in return, he wants Farrell's character to pick a member of his own family and kill them. If he does that, the rest of his family will be protected. This virus thing that has come upon them will cease, and he will only lose one family member rather than losing all three. So that's your setup. Like I say, that nugget kind of comes fairly late in the day. I watched this last night. It might not quite be halfway through the film, but it certainly felt like it. It may even indeed be about halfway through the film. So that will give you some indication as to the pacing of this. Now, like I said, it's slow paced, but that doesn't mean that it's boring. So there is a difference. I think sometimes people say, oh, it's too slow paced or whatever, and what they mean is it's boring. There's nothing wrong with a slow pace in a film. Pacing issues, people like to throw that one out. Oh, it's got pacing issues. No, the pacing is fine. It's deliberate. It's very deliberate, and I can work with that. If you're not one for a slow burn, then this might not be for you. Now, the story for this, and Yorgos pretty much kind of spells this out in the film in one scene, is based on a Greek mythology. It's based on a story from Greek mythology in which a man kind of gets ideas above his station, thinks he can do things without a particular god. That particular god curses his family and forces him to essentially kill his daughter. He wants to kill his daughter, but he tricks the god by instead killing a sacred deer, hence the title. So that's essentially the kind of the Greek mythological story in which it alludes to. And as I say, there is a scene in the film when we are told that the daughter has done a paper on that very Greek mythological story. So, you know, he's not hiding the fact there. It is pretty evident that that's what it's all based on, with a slight twist in the ending. You know, so it is a modern retelling of that story, but with a slightly different ending. There's pluses and negatives to this film. I'll get into the pluses first. As ever, Kidman, Farrell, they're very watchable. I feel like their performances here are very controlled, but not necessarily by them. I feel this is a director's film. You know, in very much the same way as a Kubrick film is, you know, it's not the actor's film, it's a Kubrick film. The performances you see in a Kubrick film have been got from Kubrick. He's done 87 takes or however many it is until he gets what he's looking for, until he gets what he wants. And I feel like this is the same kind of thing. Now, Kubrickian is a term that has been bandied around quite a bit with this film as far as Yorgos goes, and with his material in general. I think that's because he does like the big wide shots. This film is shot in a lot of, it's mostly wides. Now, what's the reason behind that? Why shoot in wides? What purpose does that have for this film? Well, I think it keeps everyone at a distance from each other. You know, when you're in a close-up, you've got to put people in the frame together. It's more intimate. It forces them to get closer to each other. Whereas here, Yorgos doesn't want that. You know, this is clearly about a family that, while on the surface they may seem to have everything, the big nice house, the great job, that, you know, that they say things that sounds like it means they love each other, but really that's all veneer. It's all for show. It's pretense. It's none of it's true. These are disgusting people, basically, and that's essentially what Lanthimos is trying to do. Really, he's illustrating that even though everything on the surface looks nice, there's distance between these people. So going wide all the time means you can show the whole family all the time in the same shot, but they're never together. They're never truly together. There is always distance between them. In that respect, it kind of plays on a lot of the same things that he worked with in The Favourite, that I didn't like too much in that film. And while I understand it a bit more here, I think I can understand what he's going for a bit more here, or maybe not. Maybe I understand it just as much. Now, there are times in the film, and this is as much to its detriment as it is its praise, that characters have a bit more warmth to them. Particularly Farrell's character. Like, there is a moment when he breaks down and there's no one else around. So right there, you know that that's not pretense. You know that's not veneer. It's not for show, because he's not doing it in front of anyone. He's on his own and he breaks down. Now, the question is, what is he breaking down for? You know, is it the guilt? Does he actually feel guilty for being responsible for this kid's father's death? Is it the moral choice that is on his shoulders as to which member of the family he should kill? You know, is it something else? Is it the fact that the cracks are starting to show now, and he doesn't know what to do. So it could be many things that cause that breakdown. We don't know. But either way, there is a little bit of warmth there. There's humanity to this guy. So these people aren't completely without humanity. And yet, I feel like, and this is where it comes into a negative, and yet I feel like the mission statement of this film is essentially to say that actually humanity is pretty much scummy, as represented by this family. That when push comes to shove, at the end of the day, we will save our own necks. And which raises the question, like, why is it that this guy can show quite a lot of humanity throughout? You know, the scene I just mentioned, he clearly feels something. He's not a total, he's not totally detached from reality or anything. He does get emotional. But also the fact that he does befriend this kid, he's not completely without humanity. And even if he's not outright, spelled out that, yes, I'm guilty, please forgive me, he still befriends this kid in a way that is, he doesn't have to, if there's no obligation there, really. And maybe that is born out of guilt. But people who are detached from guilt, your Harold Shipmans of the world, those American audience members may not get that reference, but your John Gacy's of the world, you don't feel guilt, or certainly, you just don't. You're so detached from what you're doing, you're just happy to get away with it. And that's not this guy. So if he is feeling guilt, then it's manifesting in the fact that he is willing to start a relationship with this kid and buy him gifts, and that's so. What I'm saying there is humanity in this character by Farrell, and I personally think that perhaps too much so. I think given the mission statement of Lanthimos, Yorgos, whatever his name is. Given the mission statement of his film, what I believe he's trying to say with it, a lot of it is about fate. You can't escape fate. Ultimately, this guy is going to have to choose. I just feel like that given that Yorgos is trying to show is that ultimately these guys will screw each other over. Ultimately, they are lacking a true sense of morality. Ultimately, they will save themselves. This guy, this character by Farrell has too much humanity in him for me to believe that. So it's just I feel like that character, and again, it is nothing down to Farrell's performance. Farrell here is great. He does everything I believe the director is asking of him and more, which is a testament as to why I feel for him and feel a little bit conflicted for him. I just feel like he's a bit of a contradiction when it comes to what I feel the main story is trying to tell us or show us or insinuate about humanity. Now the main reason for that, for why I think that, because I've danced around that particular topic for a little while now, and you might be thinking, well, why do you think that? Why is there a reason to think that? And the reason I think that is that not once does Farrell's character go to this Keegan character, and he's got a few options that he could do, at the very least. One, go to him and beg forgiveness. Like he never once begs for forgiveness, admits guilt, and that's fine. That doesn't bother me so much because it sets up the whole idea that Yorgos is going for, which is that these people are ultimately out for themselves. But again, it betrays the more human side to this guy that we have seen in the film. And two, he never once offers himself up instead of his family. Like there's not one time does he go to Keegan's character and say, how about my life for your fathers? Leave my family, take me. And again, that isn't, it's not strictly an issue if this character hasn't shown any signs of humanity, if he is the scumbag that Yorgos is asking us to believe he is. But he's not. because so do you see what I'm getting at there? I guess what I mean is, I think it's to the film's detriment that there is actually any warmth in this guy, that there is, you know, he is desperate to save his children. We see that. We see frustration that, you know, that he can't do anything about it. On the flip side of that, there are moments when you could look at that frustration and read it as his own arrogance, that perhaps, you know, because there's certainly in the first half of the film, he's determined to solve this thing medically, but at some point in the film, he does have to give in to the fact that this isn't anything that medical science can determine or can fix. It is literally down to Keegan's will. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of contradictions in the character, given what Yorgos is asking us to go along with. Now, I will say that Raffi Cassidy is pretty good as the daughter. I think she nails it performance-wise, in the sense that there is nothing about her I like. Which that sounds like a contradiction in and of itself, doesn't it? But you know, as I say, when you look at the agenda that I feel is behind this film, I feel like she gets it. I feel like she doesn't allow any warmth there to be shown, and even when there is some warmth, or what appears to be warmth, the veneer of warmth, you know, it's because there is another agenda there. Like at one point during the film, she goes to her father and says, "Kill me. You know, I'll take the bullet. I'll take one for the team, so to speak." But you know that's just, she's doing that in order to win him over. You know, it's almost like she wants him to see that she's the one who's willing to be the sacrificial lamb, and will therefore spare her. And all of the characters do that to some degree, where yeah, they act in a way that is ultimately about saving themselves, and regaining their standing in their father's eyes, so to speak. Now, ultimately, at the end, and this is spoilers. This is flat out spoilers. So if you are going to watch it, you don't want to know the ending, then now is the time to go elsewhere, because I'm definitely going to spoil it. So yeah, I'm giving you enough time there. So ultimately, in the end, in a scene that is actually rather amusing because of just how ridiculous it is in nature, Farrell's character, he puts his family in the living room, he ties them up, puts bags over their heads, puts a mask over his own face so he can't see. Well, it's a woolly hat, it looks ridiculous, and it's meant to, obviously. He puts his woolly hat over his head so he can't see. And then he just spins around with this gun and keeps firing off a round, peering to see if he's got one of them. Does it yeah, and he just keeps on doing that until eventually he puts a bullet in his son. He kills his son. That's where the film should end, really. Because let's face it, there's no getting out of that. Now, that in and of itself, see, again, it's this constant contradiction where he is willing to kill one of his children, or well, one of his family members, but it is in order to save the other two. Now, again, why not lay down your own life? But ultimately, yeah, he's doing this to try and save at least two. He's desperate. So I think you would have to, as a character, if you were in Farrell's shoes, doing this action, you would have to know. You would have to know that you're not walking away from that. You're going to prison. That's it. There's no way you can explain your way out of this. You know, that is what it is. So that is ultimately the sacrifice you make. You save two of your family members, but at the cost of one and the cost of your own freedom. You're going to prison. That's it. So that's where the film should end. Him shooting the son. That's it. And we get this final sequence. We get this final sequence in this diner, in which the remaining three family members are sat there. Keegan's character comes in. Kind of, they give each other a look. Like, okay, it's done. That's it. There's nothing more to say. There's nowhere else for us to go from here. The family get up and they walk out. Well, that scene was just off to me. It shouldn't be there. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous because, as I say, there's no way you get from that scene, from the killing of the boy, to any kind of situation where this family is now sitting in a diner having a meal. It ain't happening. So now you could argue that it is purely a metaphorical scene, so to speak, that it's not actually happening, but rather it's just meant to represent this, you know, the job is done, this, that and the other. Personally, that wasn't the feeling I was getting from it as I was watching it. So yeah, I just think it's misplaced. I think it's a misjudgment to put that scene there. I think gun goes off, hat goes up, the boy is dead, cut to black. Other than that, yeah, like I say, really not that likable characters, to be honest. You know, there's times in the film where, like, for example, when and again, this is Farrell's character. You know, his son's in bed, he's not eating. That's a part of this, whatever this thing is, this curse. It's a part of it. First you get paralysis, then you stop eating, then you bleed from the eyes, then you die. And the son is at the stage where he's not eating. He's paralyzed. He's in a hospital bed. He's refusing to eat, and Farrell's character starts trying to shove this donut into his son's mouth, and the mother is stood there, and it's like, I don't know about anybody else out there, anybody else's family dynamics or whatever, but if I tried to do that with one of my kids, with my wife stood there, my wife, who's actually quite a gentle person, who doesn't like conflict or anything like that, she would be having words. She would scream at me, "What the hell are you doing?" You know, she would jump in there, and it's just that's just a natural kind of response, I guess. Again, you can say that feeds into everything that Yorgos is trying to do with this film, which is to show us that actually these people don't really care about each other. But I just feel like he has to cheat sometimes. There's a conversation between the two doctors, the anesthesiologist and Farrell's character, and they're just talking about watches, and it's the most bland kind of conversation imaginable. And it literally sounds like two sociopaths, two psychopaths talking, trying to pretend that they're real people, like they're trying to pretend that they are, like, that they have humanity, that they're not psychopaths. You know, it's that thing where if somebody doesn't feel, they have to fit into society and pretend that they do before somebody notices, and that's what this scene feels like. Well, it's just like you've essentially got a whole family that are like that. That's essentially what they're all like. But then you get these genuine moments of humanity from Farrell's character, which contradicts that. So, no, you can't. Yeah, I feel like that's cheating. You can't. Yeah, it's one or the other. Either you're a sociopath who doesn't care about anything, or or you're not. Farrell's character is invited to Martin's house. Martin, this kid played by Keegan, he invites him over to his house for dinner, meet his mother, played by Alicia Silverstone. Yeah, it's been a while. But you know, clearly this is a very attractive woman. Martin makes himself scarce, and then she's all over him. She's basically, you know, gives him a come on. There's no one there, but he very clearly feels uncomfortable and gets the heck out of there. Now, I'm not saying that deserves Man of the Year award. That's just something you should do. You know, if you're a married man, get up, get out of there. But clearly this isn't a guy who is willing to cheat on his wife. And again, you know, I don't know if that's just meant to be because he's trying to keep up the show, or people who are not morally bankrupt, they don't cheat on their wives. So if I'm to keep up the show, then I need to do that now. I need to get out. But no, it doesn't feel that way. The guy feels genuinely uncomfortable. He gets up and he walks out, and he says he loves his wife. So again, is he a sociopath? Does he not feel anything, or does he actually have some kind of moral core, some moral centre, some feelings towards his wife? Which is it? It's an interesting film. It's one that kind of gets you thinking. It lingers with you. It stays with you. Maybe doesn't work entirely for me for the reasons I've stated, but I am still going to give it a 4 out of 5 because, like I say, I think there is definitely an agenda there that I can see. I think there are certain ways in which it's directed that work for me. Like I say, the wide shots, not just for the sake of it. I was never bored. I was always intrigued. I was always like, where is this going? But I think in the same way that the characters are ultimately detached from each other, even when they are trying to put on the show that they're not, I felt the same. I felt detached from them. I felt like this isn't the way people act. You know, this isn't the way people behave. I gave it 3 stars last night after watching it on Letterboxd. I think you should never, once you've watched a film, you should never go straight to Letterboxd and just click your star rating. I did that last night. I gave it 3 stars, and it was all about how I felt. But as I'm laying there in bed, the film's still playing in my head. I'm still going over things, and I'm still thinking about it. Things pop out, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. That's something I didn't think of before. And, yeah, it went up in my estimation. Still not sure if it's a film I'll ever watch again. But it's definitely got something. It's certainly intriguing enough, and I would definitely recommend it. So 4 out of 5 from me. Thank you, Zarate, once again for your recommendation. Certainly an interesting one. And yeah, please do let both me and Zarate know what you think of the film if you've seen it. If you think I'm talking absolute crap, feel free to say so. You can be nice about it though. Yeah, leave it down in the comments section, whatever it is you have to say. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, cracking.